will be split into 4 parts. If you're not familiar with Anki, you'll have to check the manual, the official channel, the Anki tutorial, which are available in the description. The sources I used for making this deck are also present. I'm using the Anki version 2.1.43, which includes changes to the filtered deck and the sidebar in the browser. For the properties, there is the font for the Quran, the ayah number or the verse number, the meaning in Arabic for each verse. I chose the easiest one, the most accurate English translation that I found, a Hafsi recitation which is in Hafs, as is the Quran, and 2 chapter introductions which summarize the chapter into key points and help with understanding the chapter and the context of its revelation. The deck contains 2 versions of the Quran. See 1 for chapter of the first version, which is meant for learning. As you can see, everything is suspended. The cards won't appear in the review as we will be using it only from the browser. And C2 for chapter of the second version, which is meant for reviewing. You have 2 verses before the actual verse, as you can see here. And also the tag for the current chapter. Now some of the verses are too long. If you try to compare your guess to the verse, you'll lose track and it becomes harder to know if you made mistakes or not. So I have divided them based on these pause marks. Just see here. Of course, I didn't use this one. Now with these you have 2 additional words at the end to help you know when you need to stop your guess. This however won't solve the problem completely, as there are still some verses that are quite long, but I didn't want to split them as they didn't have any pause marks, so to maintain their meaning I left them as is. Nevertheless, this manipulation helped with most of the verse. There is one last difference between the 2 versions. C2 doesn't include the recitation field. There is 2 reasons for that. The first is that each audio file plays the whole verse, so adding this field in C2 would result in many useless repetitions. The second is that I have enabled the automatic play audio feature, and that isn't suited for reviewing. The last tag you see here, S, is for similarities. Some of the verses of the Quran finish exactly the same way, then take different turns. So, as to not fall into this trap, I have compared all the verses and came up with these similarities. This however can't solve the problem completely, as there are some verses that are similar in the beginning part, then take different turns in the middle of the verse. I didn't include them here because of their overwhelming number, and also because they are subjective. Some people might find them helpful, others not so much. This tag is present only in C2, as it helps when reviewing. You'll notice that some of the chapters include subtags or parts to make learning them easier. The duration of the audio is the factor that I used for splitting. You won't find a part or a chapter that have more than 10 minutes in total. When it comes to add-on, you have to install the load balancer. As the Quran contains a large amount of cards, it will help you balance your picks and even out your reviews. Also, the control audio add-on is really helpful if, like me, you like to increase the speed of the recitation. Some nice add-on to have are the clickable tags to jump to the similarities or the chapters, and the customized keyboard shortcuts. The quranki is shared as a collection in order to have everything set up for you. So you'll have to create a new profile. After importing, if you haven't yet learned all the Quran, you'll need to suspend what's left. Now there's 2 situations. Either you have many chapters to learn, in this case select C2, then Command for End, then Alt for Is Not, then select the few chapters that you have learned. Now you can select all and suspend. The second situation is that you have many learned cards. Here you just have to select the few chapters that you have not yet learned while holding the Shift key for all. For the new cards, you can go through them in the reviewer. However, if there are too many cards and you can't do them all, you have two options. Either you change the new cards per day to 20, for example, to be able to do them gradually, or if you know that you learn the cards really well and that you're sure that you'll remember them without any mistakes, then you can set the due date directly. Enter a number for the interval. First, as you can see here, then add one before to spread the card evenly. This part is split into reviewing and learning. First, you have to do your reviews. If you don't remember the card, you'll have to determine which type of error you are in. If you mistook a letter for another, went into another chapter because the previous verse was similar to another, or you simply forgot the card, fail it. If you made an error of inattention, or you mixed up the order, say you guessed one of the verses that come after instead of the right one, mark it, then bury it. For the next day. Tomorrow when you encounter it, focus. If you mixed up the order again, then you can unmark it and fail it. If you made an error in the pronunciation, never fail the card. Flag it and wait until you pronounce it the correct way, then you can remove the tag. And if you accidentally reveal the card, then bury the card without flagging or marking it. It's important you flag the pronunciation error and mark the inattention error because you can have them both present in the same card. If, for example, you just flag them with different colors, one will override the other. Knowing that you will review the Quran all your life, it's unavoidable that you'll fail some cards multiple times and fall into ease hell. To counter this, I have made a filtered deck which contains the cards that have an ease lower than 1.8. You can change that if you want. I made this deck to focus on them, understand them, and mark them as easy when I feel that I know them well enough. I repeat this process until they leave the filtered deck, and don't forget to rebuild it after you finish. Now on to the second part, which is learning. It contains two phases. The first part is listening to the chapter or part of the chapter once every day. You can increase the frequency if you want. So find the chapter you want to learn, save it in your favorites. I usually just write the chapter name, select preview, and then the audio will play automatically. I recommend you keep the audio speed at low level the first few days. Increasing it from the get-go will result in poor learning of the first part of the verse. Now as you jump to the next verses, don't forget to read the meaning in Arabic and in English. And when you reach the last verse, read the two chapter introductions to complete your understanding. Repeat this process until you feel that you can retrieve the meaning just from reading the verses. After that, you can just listen to the verse and feel free to increase the audio speed if you want. Unfortunately, there is a bug with the control audio add-on. To avoid it, enable interrupt audio when answering and make sure the backside only is disabled. Otherwise, Anki will crash if you skip at the middle of the audio. After some time, if you are actively listening, you'll find yourself able to guess a good amount of the chapter. When you reach a satisfying level of familiarity, advance to phase 2. To do that, just change to the second version Make sure everything is unsuspended. Create a filtered deck based on the search. Increase the limit. Change to the order due. Disable reschedule. Build it. Don't forget to remove the search of the matching C1 chapter from the favorites. Now you can go through this filtered deck. Fail the card as many times as it takes. You have to guess them all correctly until there is no card left. If you make mistakes, rebuild the filtered deck and come back tomorrow. If, however, you got them all right in your first try, then answer all the cards are as good in the original deck and delete the filtered deck. Let's summarize the routine. First, do your reviews and flag or mark the card if mistake there is. Second, go through the problematic verses. If you know them well enough, answer with easy, then rebuild the filtered deck. Third, go through your phase 2 filtered deck until there is no card left, then either rebuild it or delete it. Fourth, listen to the chapter you're currently learning while reading the meaning, and if you think you're ready, set it to phase 2. When it comes to choosing how much to learn, you'll finish faster by increasing the load, but it will be harder to maintain, so you'll have to find the right balance between learning too much or too little. Here are 3 examples. One chapter at a time. When you finish phase 2, then you can add another chapter to phase 1. The second option is one chapter in phase 1 at a time, which means you'll add another chapter right after finishing phase 1. But this will result in many chapters in phase 2, because the time spent with each one can vary, and of course multiple chapters in phase 1 and phase 2. Remember that you're not fixed into choosing one or the other. You can change based on how much free time you have. Of course, reviews are non-negotiable. This modification concerns only the learning part. Thank you for watching.